So SNAP benefits are on the chopping block right now, and people are scared, right? There's some states that are taking action, like infusing money into food banks, and New Mexico, in particular, has just said we are going to put $30 million into SNAP. And it's risky because what can I say, man? The federal government isn't going to pay back that money. They're willing to sacrifice some money to help feed people in need, which is very important. And now this thing is all tied up into the Senate and really just Congress in general, with the Democrats not wanting to budge on funding for the ACA. The ACA insures millions of people who are unable to get insurance from their employer but are still unable to afford Medicaid. Now, what exactly is the Republicans and the Democratic views on this ACA? Republicans never really liked it. Republicans are very pro private business, right? They want you to buy insurance through insurance companies. They don't want to fund it, right?
What's the Republican health care plan?
We're working on this, having discussions amongst our members. We got a lot of divergent views about how best to go back to a doctor-patient relationship that's revered, about rewarding medical professionals as opposed to all those rules that are coming down and frankly driving doctors out of the system.
But this is one of the criticisms that a lot of Americans have, that the Republican Party knows what it's against, but can't tell us what it's for. Can't tell us the details, for example, of a health care plan after all these years of Obamacare.
Scott, with all due respect to you, you've mischaracterized the likelihood of success with Obamacare. The Congressional Budget Office doesn't work for.
A little government interference is possible when it comes to funding people, and Democrats want people to be able to have insurance, right? That's why they champion things like Medicaid, Obamacare, things like that. And if you get a little more far left, kind of like where I am, universal health care. These are things that other countries have, right? We are one of the only first world countries that don't have universal health care. And regardless of what people say is that, oh, it sucks in Britain, well, they still have it, right? They're still able to get treatment versus if you have to wait a while for appointment to get treatment versus not being able to afford treatment at all and you going medically bankrupt. If it's mandatory, I'd rather wait, but that's just me personally. And I just say that to say this: we could probably afford universal health care. I know there is some other interests that the US has, like foreign aid, foreign military interventions, tax cuts for the rich, things like this. This is what a lot of our money is going towards. But essentially, we make the most money. We per capita have a decent amount of money. We should be able to afford a universal health care, let alone a stopgap measure like the ACA should definitely be affordable. And the price tag does seem high. As a personal belief of mine, I think healthcare should be one of the top priorities of the government, right? The citizens' health, the citizens' well being. I think that is extremely important to any nation. Now, there's a lot of talking points when it comes to this government shutdown and the ACA funding. Like, they're going to give money to illegal immigrants, and it's so much money. Why are they want to support illegal immigrants but not families, right? Well, this is not true. Alien is just a person who is a non citizen resident in the US. So, people who come over with working visas that cannot afford healthcare will get healthcare through the ACA funding. People who are seeking asylum, such as Trump's favorite asylum seekers, the Afrikaners from South Africa, will get Medicaid. Now, a lot of people are like, we just want high class immigration.
I think it's going to be tremendously successful. Howard, would you say a few words about that?
Sure. So historically, the employment-based green card program let in 281,000 people a year. And those people, on average, earned $66,000 a year on average, and they were 5 times more likely to go on assistance programs of the government. So we were taking in the bottom quartile, below the average American. It was illogical. The only country in the world that was taking in the bottom quartile. So what we are doing now is we are going to stop doing that. We're going to only take extraordinary people at the very top. Instead of people trying to take the jobs from Americans, they're going to create businesses.
But that's not really feasible. Immigration is pretty entrenched in the American economy. We have to have some form of immigration to keep bolstering the economy. And I know you're saying, well, the immigrants take our jobs. Ugh. Well, yes and no, right? Immigrants typically work for less money than is feasible to live. Their American dream is not the same American dream we live in. Well, let me rephrase that, right? Where they are in the American dream is far less steps than what the average American expects to be, right? It's not uncommon for immigrants to live in communal housing. It's not uncommon for immigrants to work long hours, essentially to be kind of abused by the system. Let's be real. And Americans just don't go for that, right? Now, this is weaponized two ways, right? Of course, it's weaponized by getting, labor for cheap, but it's also weaponized by galvanizing American citizens and scapegoating the immigrants. What really should happen is that the immigrants' work conditions and pay should be raised up, and people, Americans included, would be more willing to work these jobs, right? It's kind of a simple fact, but they like to use the unemployed Americans, specifically right now. They like to use the unemployed male as a scapegoat, and it kind of mind boggles me because they use him as a scapegoat in like a cause, and they just go for it.
Constituents, a lot of them that in some of these inner cities that there's going to need SNAP to survive, and they're getting a lot of calls, and the pressure is going to be put on them. A lot of people need to go back to work. A lot of young men that are on SNAP that should be working.
One of the main reasons they do this is because, let's be real, corporate greed. Corporations don't want to pay workers less money to get less production, even though production's at like an all-time high in American like society, and I think just society as a whole. But they don't want to pay higher wages to Americans because when you pay Americans, they're going to want extra benefits as well, such as insurance, right? Insurance that comes with the job. So there you go. They use it to scapegoat regular Americans, especially males, by saying, well, males cannot get Medicaid because they're just sitting in their basement playing video games, being a polite society, and they should go out and get jobs.
You don't want able-bodied workers on a program that is intended, for example, for single mothers with two small children who's just trying to make it. That's what Medicaid is for, not for 29-year-old males sitting on their couches playing video games. We're going to find...
But the jobs that are available aren't really paying enough, right? And if they're not paid enough and people are willing to have immigrants come in and do those jobs, they're not going to hire Americans. That's just what it is. It's corporate greed. And the worst part about it, right? They'll sit there and call you lazy and say you should get a job and that you don't deserve any type of benefits whatsoever, not SNAP, not Medicaid. But then they'll look at you and say, your birth rights have been taken away. You have lost your jobs to immigrants. You deserve much more. On the same token, they're getting funding from companies that are building Manhattan size AI factories in states that really can employ people, but they're going to use immigrants instead, right? And really, this whole crackdown on immigration and all this stuff isn't about getting you a job at the farm or getting you a job at the manufacturing plant. It's about having more control over the immigrant workers there, right? If owners don't feel like they're being productive enough or they're asking for too much money or they're going to collectively come in and ask for benefits, immigration is going to come in and take them all away. This is all owners like extra power card to get more productivity from people who are already making less than normal. So why would they hire anybody that is an American citizen when they just don't want you to have things that other people have, essentially, right? They don't want American people who are actually working who just can't afford actual true insurance without some help to get it. And that's what it is. It puts you more into medical debt. It forces you to work more hours to pay off that medical debt. It forces you to work harder. All this is always corporate grabs whatsoever. We're being used as pawns as always. And if you think the deep state has been taken out, you are sorely mistaken. I don't know if you know this, but the deep state was never like random Joe FBI agent. It was always these corporate oligarchs, these hedge fund managers, these families that control so much of commerce. This is what the original deep state was back with like 2012, 2013 when the thing was popping, and they're still in control and they're still holding on to power and using us as pawns against each other to sow division and earn more money while doing it. That's what it comes down to.